Hello, Sergey Viktorovich, tell me please, why are there rewrites today? Attempts are being made to belittle or even deny the role of the Red Army and the Soviet people in the victory over Nazism.
I think this is the traditional position of the West. Weaken competitors. Europeans dominated for about 500 years primarily because they wanted to conquer as much land as possible, enslave as many people as possible, and in fact all the tragedies of mankind before World War II, including World War II, were tragedies unleashed by Europeans, starting from colonialism, slavery, the Turkish War, the First World War, World War II.
Колониализма, рабовладельчества, Турецкая война, Первая мировая война, Вторая мировая.
These were all attempts by one or another power, which in Europe was struggling for the first roles, to suppress competitors. Strictly speaking, there is nothing new in competition. People have always competed, the state competed. But the methods by which Europe suppressed competitors, of course, is terrible. And these instincts, by the way, are deeply rooted in the current European society, in the elites, first of all. In those elites that are in power in most countries of the European Union, NATO. Although the opposition is already making its way to an understanding of the unacceptability of such actions, such policies. But the instincts of the ruling class in Europe, they are now clearly manifested in what is happening in Ukraine. In the war that the West unleashed with the hands of the Kiev regime and the bodies of the Kiev regime, the bodies of the citizens of Ukraine against the Russian Federation. Just as Napoleon put almost the whole of Europe under his banners in the Great Patriotic War, in the first just like Hitler. Having conquered practically, he put the whole of Europe under the arms of both the French and the Spaniards. Most of the countries of the continent that fought on his side, and the French carried out punitive operations. And the Spaniards participated in the blockade of Leningrad, by the way, this is well known.
Большую часть стран континента, которые воевали на его стороне, и карательные операции французы осуществляли, и испанцы участвовали в блокаде Ленинграда, между прочим. Это хорошо известно.
Therefore, even now we see how almost the entire West, almost the entire European West, is also put under arms, in order to try to prolong the life of the Nazi Zelensky regime with their bayonets. This is also being done, as in the Hitler era, it is also being done under Nazi flags, with SS chevrons, the Death's Head Division, and so on and so on. And the West probably thinks that if we honestly describe his contribution to the development of mankind, we will get a very unsightly picture. Therefore, they are trying in every possible way to whitewash their actions, to whitewash the actions of their predecessors, and for good reason. Because the rehabilitation of Nazism is already beginning to become one of the reference points in the position of the West, in international discussions. At least, they vote against the resolution that the Russian Federation, together with its allies, annually submit to the UN General Assembly, and which demand to prevent the glorification of Nazism and other similar Russian practices. They are even trying to hypocritically insert amendments into this resolution that will equate with Nazism. What the Russian Federation is doing now, freeing people from Nazi oppression as part of a special military operation. But these attempts have not been crowned with success, and, I am sure, will not be crowned, but the tendency to rewrite history, to equalize the criminals declared as such by the Nuremberg Tribunal and the liberators of Europe, has been going on for quite a long time in the Baltic states, Poland, and a number of other countries of the European Union. And this is a trend that needs to be dealt with very harshly. Among the examples of the closure of the Russian exposition in the former Auschwitz-Birkenau concentration camp, This has been happening for several years. We do not have the opportunity to update our exposition and not perform there. We are simply not invited there. It is amazing that this year the ceremony dedicated to the next date of the liberation of this concentration camp was attended by those who, in fact, turned this camp into a death camp. And we have not seen those who liberated this camp, and I am particularly concerned about the behavior of the UN-Secretary General. Not because he is approaching the ideal as a person, but because he is the UN-Secretary General, and whoever he is. He is a Portuguese citizen. He has worked in international organizations for half his life and should to understand what the UN-Secretary General is. In accordance with Article 100 of the Charter, which states not to accept any instructions from any government, to observe neutrality, and to achieve the only thing. This is the fulfillment of the purposes of the UN Charter. And he, speaking at the ceremony dedicated to the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau, did not mention the Red Army once, although the memorial day for those victims. It was established precisely on the basis of the feat of the Red Army, and this, of course, is a sad trend. This was already about 5 years ago, long before the special military operation, when Presidents Putin, Macron, Israeli Prime Minister, and us Vice President Mr. Pence attended the opening of a special monument to the victims of the Leningrad blockade in Jerusalem. Everyone mentioned the feat of the Red Army, Mr. Pence said, and we were all happy when the Allies opened the gates of Auschwitz on such and such a day in January 1945. You see what kind of allies were meant, that is, from the series and we plowed. It's sad. This, I repeat, is not something that is now a new phenomenon in connection with their bitterness about a special military operation. This is a trend that needs to be combated. We do this, I repeat, first of all at the UN site with the participation of our expert community. Numerous seminars are held. Conferences are organized, exhibitions are organized, documents are declassified, and we have no right to let this truth be forgotten.
What other efforts is Russia making to preserve historical memory and the confrontation unleashed against us by the information war? And are modern trials for recognizing the actions of the Nazi invaders as genocide in the occupied territories part of the work to restore historical justice?
Undoubtedly, this is one of the main tasks. These trials are currently taking place on the territory of the Russian Federation, on the territory of the constituent entities of the Russian Federation, especially those who suffered the most in terms of loss of human lives and destruction. But we are actively cooperating with civil society. There are many structures that, through expert assessments, through declassified documents, through the analysis of eyewitness diaries, are collecting information that will allow, I believe, at this stage. One of the most important tasks is to recognize what the Germans and their European allies did, who, I repeat, actively participated in these very atrocities. Recognition of all these activities as genocide of the peoples of the Soviet Union.
Признание всей этой деятельности геноцидом народов Советского Союза.
I am convinced that this will not happen soon, because the resistance is enormous. It will be questioned by the whole, including the current philosophy of the majority of modern Western elites in Europe. But this work will later be brought to the official international level.
Впоследствии будет обязательно выведена и на официальный международный уровень.